awkwardness of talking about money between friends who have different incomes, different levels of expenditure. Dr. Emma Howard, wealth gaps. It is awkward between friends, isn't it, when it becomes obvious when it comes to let's go out, let's buy dinner here, let's go on holidays.
Yeah, it can be. And like this is one of the things when it comes to our spending and to even our perceptions of how wealthy or how much we earn relative to others, is that it depends very much on our reference group. So whether that's our peers, you know, our family, our friends, and there tend to be social norms within those groups of people. And those norms can be really strong, right? So, you know, if you're with a group of friends, and it might be different between different groups of friends, but, you know, a group of old friends from college, and you tend to, you know, maybe when you go out, you revert to your college days. So you might go for cheap meal and some drinks or whatever, but you have another group maybe that you work with and they tend to like nicer restaurants, and the default is you go somewhere very fancy and you spend a lot of money. People sort of stick with that status quo. We all exhibit this status quo bias. So, you know, if that's the norm, you kind of go along with it. And sometimes it can even be that a lot of people are uncomfortable with it. So even people who maybe have the money don't necessarily want to go out and blow a few €100 on a night out. But there's something we call pluralistic ignorance, this phenomenon that can occur whereby within a group, there's kind of an idea or a belief that everyone holds a particular attitude. So you might have a group of friends you go out with for a night and you spend a fortune every time. And you think, well, you kind of have to do it because everyone else wants to do it. But everyone else is annoyed about it as well. But nobody wants to say it because you think everyone else is happy with it.
If you are in those situations, just broach it. Like if you are in the WhatsApp group going, lads, we really want to go to that restaurant again. It's very expensive.
Exactly.
You know, and then people will go, well, actually, no, we'll go somewhere else then, you know?
And, you know, sometimes, like, you might think, God, I'm going to be the one that looks tight, or, you know, people are going to think I'm skint, you know, I don't want to be the killjoy. But actually, everyone else is thinking, oh, God, do we have to go there again? It's a fortune. Because there's also, like, even if, and that scene from Friends was about how much they all earn, right? So, you know, people can have very high incomes, and you can look at your friends and see, like, they have a really good job, or, you know, they're a partner in a law firm or something, and you think they've got loads of money to spend, but they can actually have a lot of outgoings if they're earning a lot of money, you know. So if you have like a big mortgage, or if you have a couple of kids who are in childcare,
they have a bigger house, they're doing all that.
It could be that actually your disposable income is a lot less than the single person who's, you know, living at home, or, you know, just has a lot more money that they can spend on things freely.
I thought this was interesting. According to Bank of Ireland research, money is only topped by death on the list of things that we find it awkward to talk about. Why is it such an uncomfortable subject for us?
I suppose there's a couple of different reasons, I guess. Like, one is that there are differences. And if you look in Ireland in particular, if you look at our market earnings, so like the money that's on your salary contract, right, on your job contract, there's huge disparities in Ireland. We're one of the most unequal when we look at wage earnings in the OECD. So people tend to look at that and think, like, you know, these people are on really high incomes and I'm on much lower income. So there's a perception of this big inequality. But in reality, actually, because we have a really progressive tax system and we have a good benefit system, if you look at take-home pay, what people are actually getting into their bank accounts to spend, we're much more equal. So so if you look at, you know, someone who's on average earnings, and you might think, like, I'm earning 50,000 a year is average earnings in Ireland, right? So you might feel like, you know, a lot of your friends are in jobs where they're earning 100,000, they're in the top 10% of earners, but you're paying a lot less tax on that. So that kind of 50,000 on paper is a much smaller difference when we take into account those higher tax rates.
But just getting back to, like, so you don't want to talk about it, but your advice would be just open a conversation about it. You know, among your friends, among your group that you're doing stuff with on a regular basis. We were talking about it this morning about
Guess which side we fall on.
No, it's not. It's not this. It's like going on holidays.
That's a big one. We like the bougie stuff. We do like our
That's
nice
a lot of
things.
things. So there's a group of 6 or 8 of you. You're all going on holidays, and somebody sort of says, "Oh, I saw this really nice cheap hotel," and you're going, "Lovely, but I'm not staying there." Can you do that? And you just go, "Lads, that's lovely. You stay there. I'm staying in the one 2 doors down."
Yeah, And I think
that's fine. We'll all meet and we'll go to the
Still
beach.
making me feel very awkward you even saying that, Alan.
But is it awkward?
But you know what? It shouldn't be, because even if I can afford to stay in that fancy hotel, right? When we're thinking about making spending decisions rationally, we should always think about the opportunity cost of our spending, right? Not just whether I can afford and I can pay that out of my salary. Because let's say you stay in the fancy hotel, that might mean that there's something else you can't do. So, you know, you might not go on the expensive organised day trips, or, you know, you might only go on one holiday this year, but you'd much rather go to a five-star resort. Whereas I'd rather go to three different holidays and go to cheaper hotels.
And I have friends who do that. They would get the cheap flights, they will go in the cheap hotels, but they'll go on 5 holidays a year.
Exactly.
Because they're doing it that way.
Exactly. So everyone's going to have different preferences and different opportunity costs of spending then because of those preferences. So you need to be able to say, look, I'd prefer to stay in this cheap hotel because I'm going to be, you know, going away again next month.
Why do we have to explain it, though?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we need, you know, if we're going away with people, we have to organise it.
Yeah,
so,
but like if we're all meeting still for lunch and we're going out for the afternoon and we're going to meet for dinner that night, what difference? It doesn't matter what hotel you're staying in, does it?
Yeah.
Once it's 5-star. I'm only messing. But it's what you put value on. I would put a value on that because that's my holiday. Yeah. That's my time to relax. And I don't want to buy the beautiful handbag that my ex-mate has. Do you know what I mean? So
and you know what? And some of the things, like some of our spending, it's sort of a signal of our status sometimes, right? So if you look at people's wealth versus their consumption or their spending, those are two quite different things. So if I'm very sensible with my money, I might earn the same money as you do, but I invest mine and I do sensible things with it, whereas you have the 5-star hotel and the nice handbag and the flashy car, and it looks like, or you know, it seems like you're much more financially secure,
but actually
not
you're
necessarily.
The one with the savings pot.
Exactly, and you know what? And you may be borrowing money to fund that 5-star hotel.
That's true.